another limited edition of 100 Guitars BB King signature. He's regularly known for all of his various Lucille models, and we've celebrated that by documenting the Epiphone version in white. And then Gibson came out with the Legacy model, which usually has a figured maple top to it and a transparent ebony finish, and you get the Super 400 inlays. All the way to his most recent, the Live at the Regal model ES335, which was a really cool Argentine gray color with Murphy Lab aging. And while that was a very nice guitar, it kind of felt like it was just kind of out of nowhere. And our next one, that's how I felt at first too. So let's take a look here. We got two humbuckers. We got a vibrola, which is cool. We've got the witch hat knobs, baritone, tortoiseshell colors, pickguard, ebony fretboard, pearl block inlays. This just kind of seems to be your regular 70s style 355. I don't see anything too crazy on the back, but we do have a volute. But this just had me scratching my head. Didn't we just see this exact guitar a couple of years ago? And the answer is yes. We had the Chuck Berry Signature 355. It's got pretty much all the same specs. The color is just ever so slightly different. A nice wine red over here, and being technically a 1978 reissue. Whereas over here it's like a walnut coloring. And yeah, we get slightly different tuners. But now that I think about it, the Chuck Berry model actually had the maple neck, whereas this one's mahogany. And you gotta remember, 74 specs are way different than 78. So I'm curious if they got the neck profiles right. And then I saw this in the title, T-Type Custom Bucker Pickups. Are those brand new, or are they just rebranding the T-Type calibrated set into custom buckers now? But everything changed for me when I saw the case candy. I have seen this photo. That is burnt into my memory because I like 70s memorabilia, and that's an original marketing pamphlet. And then I saw the guitar and went, okay, this one makes a little bit more sense. So I called around to a few dealerships, and yes, I will be reviewing one. So if anybody wants to New Guitar Day one of these, if you're like me, 10 grand is a little bit much for this model, feel free to reach out. So we'll continue talking about this one in a couple of weeks. But now let's have a word from our sponsor tonight, Sweetwater. They're a great place to buy all your new gear, whether that's a brand new guitar, got a keyboard, maybe even orchestral instruments. They've got you covered. You can order online or shop in person. What I like about them best is if you're buying a guitar, you can see the top, you can see the serial number, you can see the weight. They make the decision as easy as humanly possible, short of abducting you through your computer screen so you can play it in person. But they're also going to hook you up with a dedicated sales engineer, so if you like that personal touch, they are the dealer for you. Thank you, Sweetwater, for sponsoring tonight's episode. Now let's see what else is new for Gibson. We have an ultra fancy boy acoustic. Some might argue too fancy. This is a J45 for your high-end art collector guy. You've got the abalone purfling along the binding. You've got it on your rosette. You have an Nagoya shell with abalone within it saying 130. We've got these fancy doodads over here. Looks like maybe a rose growing sideways with vines in a heart shape. Your bridge pins have abalone on them. The inlay style is known as the Harp Lady. And then we get to the headstock, which has the continuation of all of that. And then you see what this is. It's an anniversary model. Straight up mother of pearl truss rod cover. That's always fun. But I thought it was really cool to see some of the in-process photos of them doing the inlay work, as well as talking a little bit about the history of the styling itself. Apparently on one of these harp guitars, so yeah, that makes sense why it's called a Harp Lady now. But it's a Sitka spruce top with a mahogany back and sides and neck. And it's to celebrate Gibson's 130th anniversary in general. Which, wow, yeah, 1894, 2024. They say it's a unitone back and sides. I'm not sure if that's a type of wood, or are they talking about their finishing techniques? Because right above there it says it's an ebony finish top. But scrolling through their photos here, I don't really see a good shot of just the back, so I don't expect much ornamentation back there. I'd imagine it might be mahogany though. So outside of your fanciness, the only thing it looks like they changed spec-wise on the J45 is having an ebony fretboard this time instead of rosewood to help the inlays pop. But with everything we just talked about, how expensive do you think that would be? I was imagining about $20,000 in my head and was pleasantly surprised when it was only $12,000. Certainly a very expensive guitar, but it could have been much worse. And they're only doing 30 of them, and apparently you're too late. Those sold out quickly. And okay, we do have photos of the back. Interesting. So you do have abalone, and they threw a stinger on it with a heel cap. All right, I honestly think that was a deal as far as these big anniversaries go. And very cool that they numbered them as well. But it looks like those were only sold at Gibson.com. But next up, as part of the Gibson Custom Select series, another fancy acoustic, this time for 10 grand in Autumn Burst. So if the J45's not your style and you don't like harp ladies, check this out, a figured maple top Hummingbird. You don't find figured maple top acoustics as often because as beautiful as it is, most people prefer the sound of Sitka spruce. But this is more so an art piece trying to stand out. I'm surprised they didn't do anything fancy with our bridge there, outside of just our 2 dots. But ooh, I like the wood grain that you can see through the top there. But they used a really tight pinstripe flame. I would love to see a Gibson acoustic with a wide flame, because I don't believe I've seen anything like that before. When I say wide flame, I'm talking something similar to, but not necessarily like this Les Paul. This is a bit closer to what I have in my head. But then again, maybe it's the Les Paul carving that makes those look so good. But if you check out the name, this is called the Hummingbird Ultima. And that's something that's been around since the 90s. If you want to check out a Les Paul Ultima, you can see it in this episode right here. And a little bit more special than most Ultimas. But interesting, it looks like we have a maple back and neck. I thought that was the Dove's thing. But I think the reason it's still a Hummingbird is because the 24 3/4 inch scale length rather than 25.5 of the Dove. But this one also has the abalone around it with your gold tuners. But it's the headstock where this one goes rogue. Lots of nice coloring in that shell. I really like the Gibson logo on this one because it's old-timey, but yet it looks retro-futuristic. But then check out your truss rod cover. You still have the white beveled edge that's plastic, that's ultra wide, but then they threw mother of pearl within there. And then I don't think I've seen this inlay pattern before on the fretboard. I like it. It's busy, but I think you could still navigate the fretboard in a little bit more of a meaningful way. That's one of the main complaints I had about my Les Paul Ultima is that inlay style, the tree of life, whatever they want to call it, it's a little bit too busy and easy to get lost. But if you look here, your first fret has like this circle, 3rd fret, another circle, 5th fret, small circle, 7th, so on and so forth. Now that might be confusing because the 12th is like right in between them, but at least it's the first one that you see. So I think they had that in mind when they were designing that. I'd like to see a Dove Ultima now. But that one is a Gibson.com exclusive. However, if you want to get more exotic, Sweetwater has their own exclusive version of this in Viper Blue, which I think transforms this even better. This has that slightly wider top I was talking about, but remember, they're all going to be a bit different, but the blue plays off the shell just a little bit differently. Look, they even incorporated some blue into our pickguard, which I love. But the whole theme of this one definitely is a little bit darker. The shell doesn't stand out as much, but everything else seems to be about the same. Quilted maple back and sides with a flamed maple top. But I definitely like the back on this one better. And along similar vibes, you guys remember the Gibson Custom Acoustic set that we talked about a couple of months ago in this episode with the J45 Custom? How a lot of people agreed with me that the Hummingbird Custom should still have a pickguard? When I went to Sweetwater's Gear Fest, at the Gibson booth, I saw one with it. I had to stop the rep and be like, is that like a show exclusive or what's going on here? And he couldn't tell me. So I looked it up and it ended up being a Sweetwater exclusive that has the Hummingbird on it. And it's all white. You guys tell me, which one do you think looks better? Because it looks like they also changed the bridge pins from the brass ones, probably to bone. You just go from Elvis Presley to a blacked out Hummingbird. To follow up these really fancy acoustics, a couple of weeks ago they came out with a new Johnny Cash signature. So far it doesn't seem like they've been too hot of sellers, but at $15,000 I think that might take some time to sell through the 100 that they made. It kind of reminds me of the Tom Petty Wildflower model they did a couple of years back. It's got a very similar style giant pickguard on it. And you've got Johnny Cash's name on your fretboard. But if that one's too expensive, you can have Roseanne Cash's J185. This is a little bit more affordable at $5,299. Still expensive, but has the Cash family's essence within it. Next up, Epiphone quietly releases a grabber reissue. This appears to be a model that's going to stay in production for a little bit, but they're $999 with a multi-piece alder body. That's really cool for Gibson, and having the full 34-inch scale length. These aren't going to be for everyone, but they're definitely a blast from the past, very 70s inspired if you like Gene Simmons or even Nirvana. But they're available in both an ebony and a natural finish. I would make an NGD exception for that one just because, you know, it's interesting. But next up, the Gibson Les Paul Studio returns. The whole marketing this time is, it's the one. They have this really trippy photo on their website that I've was sure was going to be corrected and was a mistake, but no, they left it going. But about 7 months ago, they discontinued the regular Les Paul Studio for the modern Studio, which I thought was cool. It's got the mother of pearl inlay, the nice satin finish, you've got your comfort swoop on the back, and it actually did have black binding, even though it was very hard to see. So they brought back the regular Studio. It looks like it's full gloss this time, but now we can see the binding with cream. And they changed up the pickups. It's no longer the standard 490R 498T set. They went for the Burstbucker Pros and decided to stick with ultra modern weight relief. I was kind of sad to see the mother of pearl logo gone. However, I think that's your trade-off to have the gloss finish, which I'm okay with. But we've got 4 colors of those. However, at the same time, these are $400 cheaper than the modern Studios at $1,600. But there were a few other custom select guitars that were new, such as this light-aged Silverfox 57 Junior. Custom shop juniors are hard for a lot of people to justify $5,000 for this when you can easily get a used R9. But this one does have the unique coloring, but I still haven't seen Gibson nail the Silverfox that's in my head. I like it when they've aged and turned a bit more green. I thought it was interesting nonetheless. And I'd say the back of the body looks the best. A lot of good wavy wood grain. They also had a TV white if that's more your style. You get to see through to the wood grain but still have that nice gloss finish. And a full body shot just for fun. They also dropped a new lightly aged antique Pelham Blue 68 reissue. Doesn't look like they did too much aging to the clear coat, it still looks blue. I'm usually a big fan of Pelham Blue customs, but this one doesn't do much for me. But if it was a little bit more green, I think I would feel differently. It just seems strange to see it like that, and then have all the finish checking and nicks and dings without the darker coloring. But not everybody likes green guitars, so it's nice that we have variations. Personally, I think I'll stick with my Rock and Roll Hall of Fame Les Paul Custom from 2014. It's got a little bit closer to the hue that I like, but then again, now that I'm looking at this one's still pretty blue too. It just doesn't have the aging, so this would be a good option if you didn't like the pyramid on the headstock. Next, we got British Racing Green 57 reissue. It's advertised as that D neck shape again. But okay, when you actually click on the photo, you can see it is green. It just looked black in those other photos. That's a nice dark emerald color. Headstock looks relatively left alone, but it does look like we've got some finishing issues around our nut there. And cool, it's a dark back. Nice. The green and red play well off of each other with the cream binding. And then next up, check this out. Gibson taking a page out of Fender's book. We've got custom color of their amplifiers. This is really cool because I actually heard a dealer talking about how they have their own custom color Gibson amps coming. And it's like, oh, I didn't know Gibson was going to ever toy around into that, but I guess it makes sense. So they've got this surf one, so I bet some other dealer might get a blue one or something. Fender does all kinds of crazy Tolexes. It makes sense to do. But it's also available on this model of Falcon, as well as the 5-watt. This is the one that interests me the most. It's just the nice right size. For me though, I'm not a big fan of the exclusive color. I would just rather have the regular, or would like to see the tweed covering. I think that one would sell good. It's basically a Fender Champ at that point, but hey, that's kind of what they were known for being back in the day, the cheaper version of it. All right, Troglodytes, I hope you enjoyed getting caught up on the newer Gibson models. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you tomorrow on the next one. Take care.